Okay, I think we're still rolling in, but we're conscious of time, and we're going to move quickly. Welcome to From Buzz to Bold, the concept of how listening to your audience and understanding them can be the impetus to create louder, bolder, and more effective communications. A very quick introduction. I'm Alex Hill. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer from SAMY, who are sponsoring the stage today. And this is Alberto.
Hi, everyone. I'm part of the Futures and Culture Planning team at Diageo.
Okay, so I'm going to speak very briefly and let you hear from the expert here, from Alberto's side. But I wanted to just do a little bit of a broad introduction about the concept of bravery and being not boring. And to give you a little bit of context, actually, that if you look in the history of brand marketing, you know, the bravest and actually proven to be the most effective activations are inspired by truth. And the cheeky example there of "you're not you when you're hungry" is something that we all identify with, and then we can create situations with Mr. Bean in samurai situations. And yeah, it is proven. You know, if you can find that human truth or that insight that is actually from everyday life, that is based on behavior, and you can use that to fuel your activations, you will drive more ROI. And at SAMY, we really like to use this idea that we've entered an era of marketing where you have to think human first, not advertising first. You know, the days of creating a TV ad for a Cannes Lion have given way for the need to actually truly know who your audience are, what they think, what they feel, what they need from you. And you know, we really like to work to this mantra, actually, that if you're a marketer here or a brand, actually the days of being told what to do with a brief should give way to the audience writing your brief. And as much as you might want awareness and consideration and purchase, it's actually, we can learn from the audience now, and they can tell us what they need from us as brands and marketers. And we're going to come on to it, but for us, that secret sauce is that the idea of listening to your audience, notably through social listening. And it's proven, you know, through, I don't know if you can see the source down here, but Contagious and System 1 and all those clever people have identified that when a campaign is fueled through insight from social listening, they're likely to be rated as highly creative by real people. So actually, when you listen to your audience, you use that for an action, you're going to create more creative work. And the final note from me is that I was in Cannes a couple of weeks ago, and I get onto the stat. They did a huge report that was pretty scary, that the industry has basically lost its confidence. And I haven't even tried to redesign this, but check out the white paper. But basically, yeah, there's a more risk-friendly approach happening. There's less confidence, and actually brands are saying that their ability to be tapping into culture and audiences is like poor or very poor. So lack of confidence, lack of cultural understanding is affecting our creativity. And now we're going to dig into how brands like Diageo can tap into that cultural resonance to create that impact. And so, yeah, introducing the art of listening. Pass it to you.
Thanks, Alex. Alex makes a great point when he says that social listening has become one of those biggest tools that we're using to understand our consumers. And one of the reasons is you get actual truth, actual insights straight from the voice of the people that you're interested in. It's been almost 5 years since at Diageo we set up our own proprietary foresight system. And that foresight system is designed to listen across the world to social media, to blogs, to posts, to websites, and understand how big trends are shaping, and understand how these trends have evolved over the years. This listening is being done where it actually is natural to consumers, on how consumers are actually speaking and talking about it. Look at these 3 different expressions on the screen. I'm going to move a bit to the side so you can have a look. Does anybody know what they have in common? What these 3 posts or what these 3 signals have in common? Anybody, just shout it out. Sorry? Positivity? Anybody else? Focus? Wellness, exactly. It's wellness. Oh, I'm going to go back. It's wellness, right? It's 3 different expressions of well-being. Consumers are talking about run clubs or finding ways to boost themselves, or even finding ways to fit in well-being within their everyday through juices or things like that. These different conversations all come back to one big macro trend. And the importance of defining or differentiating between those macro trends and those micro trends allows us to keep track of how things are evolving, allows us to keep track of how things are changing. And one of the things that we've done within this foresight system is understand the different topics underneath these five big future drivers. And I'll take you through those 5 future drivers in a minute, because it's good to understand how these big things are not changing. Community and how we stick together and how we're looking for pleasure are things that haven't changed. And let's use the planet as an example. This conversation around betterment brands or finding a way to be planet positive has been around for so long now. If you think 30 years behind, probably a bit more, we were talking about the ozone layer. We were talking about not using aerosols because we were having to close that gap in the sky, whatever that meant. And then we talked about reduce, reuse, and recycle. The conversation then shifted to sustainability and circular economy and giving back to the planet and net zero and carbon footprint. Overarching theme, environment and planet positive, has always been around there. The expressions, the signals, the way it's shaped in conversation is what has changed year over year. So what we've done is understand these 5 big factors. What do these mean? How do these look like? And understanding their evolution allows us to then tap into those faster trends, to that fast culture, to that immediacy that can be put into action. So we've got all 5 on screen, starting with neo-hedonism, betterment brands, collective belonging, conscious well-being, and expanded reality, right? Those 5 big things that I told you that shape human conversation. Not exclusively, but are big buckets where we are talking about. Pleasure, planet, community, digital, and well-being. I'm going to take you through a quick look at what these mean and what these look like. Starting with neo-hedonism, how pleasure now mixes with purpose, how we're finding and discovering new ways of finding joy, of finding pleasure, of indulging into different things. This is a new way of finding that positive balance in our life. And I'm going to give you examples, and these examples are expressions of how this trend looks like. And of course, I'm going to take you through examples that we've done at Diageo, but keep your mind open because these things are happening. We did Ice Chalet, which takes that après-ski moment with Johnny Walker and finds those new places, those new ways of expressing our indulgence. Think of the likes of other brands, like we were talking about McDonald's earlier today, and how they find those true moments for our consumers. Betterment brands, this about the planet that I was talking to you about, on how we're looking to give back to the planet and understanding that the planet today is not only the place where we live, but also the communities where we operate in, the people that work with our brands. This is an example of an exercise that we've done at our Princess Street store in Edinburgh with Johnny Walker's first paper bottle. How do we find that way to offset and to give back to the planet, or at least pollute less? Collective belonging is all about the strength in community. Think about fandoms, think about passion points, think about the ways that we're building closer groups of humans. Years before, it was hard to find like-minded individuals close to you, but now through connecting online, it's easier. But also, after COVID, people are getting together at a more close community way of living. Think about those bakeries, those different places that have popped up in places around us. And this is probably the wrong example now that I'm looking at it. No, I'm sorry, it is the right example. It's about how Guinness has started to build this community around something like 7 Nations, right? It's trying to find those places where people are getting together and actually moving closer and finding a way to keep close. The next one is expanding reality, the blurring lines between the digital and the physical. How we're using tech to empower, how we're using AI to facilitate, how we're using the different options that tech gives us to make sure that our community or that our interaction with people is getting better. This is an example of What's Your Cocktail, available at thebar.com, one of our platforms. And here's where you can find and identify, based with using AI, finding the right cocktail for you, depending on your mood, depending on the occasion, depending on the things you like. And last but not least, we've got conscious well-being. I'm going to get out of the way here for a bit. How people are focusing on balancing their mind, body, and spirit. This is about finding well-being in everything that we do with the work and life balance that we have, understanding where our mental health, our spiritual health, and even our community health and social health come together to find a good place. This is Men's Shed, one of the initiatives that our non-alc portfolio is leading in terms of getting men together to talk about mental health. In a workshop, as normally men would get together, but finding those unique spaces to talk about things that are completely different, that aren't talked about that much. So these are the 5 trends, and these are those 5 macro trends and future drivers that we call. These have all been identified through social media, and we've translated a huge piece of qual research into keywords, into a taxonomy, into a social listening framework through SAMY to come up with a way to listen to these conversations across the world. The system is set up today in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese, that make up for 53.2% of the online conversation. We're listening across the world to everything that's happening out there and keeping track of how these conversations shift and evolve, not only at a macro level, but also starting to look at that micro level that gives us immediacy, that helps our marketing teams tap into the trends, tap into culture in a different way. And the macro trends, helping our innovation teams see how these things are shifting and evolving. We're currently working along with SAMY to bring even more languages in. We're aiming to have 75% of the online conversation being scanned and listened to by the end of this year, adding it's 6 more languages: Arab, French, Portuguese, Japanese, and I'm missing Indonesian, are going to give us a broader look at what the trends are. Let's see. Let's ask a question. Given the amount of social listening that we have, and we can actually see how these conversations are shifting and changing in different parts of the world, out of these 5, which one do you believe is the one that has more traction, that is growing faster, and that has more volume? This is information over the year from last year. Anybody have a guess? Sorry? Collective belonging. Anybody else? Go ahead. Expanding reality with all the AI things and all the tech stuff. Somebody? Nobody else? Conscious well-being. Well, the right answer for year-over-year growth and size of conversation is neo-hedonism. We're actually looking at ways to find pleasure in different parts of our everyday life. Collective belonging, following with 117%. I'm going to get out of the way if you want to take that pick. Expanding reality, conscious well-being, and betterment brands. This is a good example, because even though you would think that things like sustainability are getting bigger outside, 62% of betterment brands doesn't mean it's not as hot as the other conversations. It means the conversation is shifted and is maturing and is a huge conversation, but with a very constant growth rate across the different geographies. So this is what it looks like year over year. We're about to close our next year at the beginning of yesterday. Yesterday was the last day that we closed social listening to create our new report that's due out in October, where we'll find how things have shifted and changed. And now that font went funky there. Let's do a quick challenge. If you were a CMO and you were listening to these things, how would you activate your brand? So somebody give me a brand, any brand. Guinness. Well, I was expecting something outside of Diageo, but Guinness. Anybody want to come up stage with me and just ask you a few questions? Am I going to choose? Come on in. Come on up. If you could rebuild social media from scratch, what would you do differently? Well, we can have that chat afterwards. Okay, so the audience has given us Guinness as one of the brands, and now you're CMO for Guinness.
Okay. I don't
right?
drink, but lovely.
So we're going to talk about neo-hedonism, that new way of finding pleasure, how we're looking for joy in different places and spaces. That is a macro trend. That is something that we've been tracking year over year, right? But then underneath, we have those micro trends, unique products and experiences, and those signals, those cultural signals that evolve way faster. Euphoric escapes, all about those places where indulgence is at its top. Think about new generation all-inclusive hotels. Think about these very cool festivals that people are doing where everything is around joy. So you're Guinness, and you have these three things. What would you do?
Well, I'm a people-first person, so I'm going to kind of stalk everyone who drinks Guinness, see where they are at, what they're doing, where they're at festivals or events, and also what is the experience you're crafting when you're having a Guinness at home, and what would want you to leave that home environment to connect with other people who consume a product that you love, and what are we doing to bring you there?
How could you use euphoric escapes to that, bringing people outside of home?
Well, I suppose it's like, what are people craving? Why are people staying indoors versus what are they craving outside? So, I mean, for Guinness as a brand, this is why I would not be a good CMO for them. But if it is that you're going more towards well-being, is it more of a wellness-centered place where you can integrate it more into your life? Or are you seeking more community and connection and want to meet with like-minded people in a space that makes you forget about the everyday life?
Thank you, thank you. It is a great idea. And you combine two things, and that's very important when doing trend work. No trend happens individually, right? Nothing is siloed in the way that we do things as humans. Everything is mixed and matched, and there's a bit of components of everything. So you adding that extra well-being layer to our euphoric escapes and the way we find pleasure gives us an additional layer of how we do things. And this is where our portfolio play as a company can come in place, using not only Guinness, but also our Guinness Zero variant that could fit into this space and offer a bit more things. When thinking about trends, let's try to always find those ways to connect to our brands. And I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. It's 5 examples of...
We might be about to get kicked off. It might be worth leaving this one with. I think we're a couple of minutes over.
Cool. So we're going to leave this up screen. This is the questions that you'd have to ask yourself to make sure that you are using trends in a relevant way. Does it reflect the real human tension or desire? Is it growing or evolving in those target communities? Has it sparked reinterpretation in social media? Can you add value and not just copy? And does it have to do with one of these 5 future drivers and macro trends? Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.